Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our channel, Era Islamic Abrahamic Wisdom. We're so glad to have you with us. Today, we're diving into a really powerful lesson on leadership, one that feels more relevant now than ever. We're going to explore a pivotal decision made by Hazrat Abu Bakr, as-Siddiq, and we'll be drawing on insights from Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir's book, The Foundation of Islamic Jurisprudence. This story is all about what it means to lead with true faith and integrity, especially in our modern era. It's a lesson in foresight and about putting the system before the self. And hey, before we jump in, if you get value from what we're doing here, please do subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and share it with your friends. It really helps us grow. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with a really big question, something that applies to leaders in any field, in any country, in any time. What do you think is a leader's single greatest test? Is it about winning battles or conquering new lands? Is it about building incredible wealth or a massive company? Or maybe it's just about becoming famous and having everyone know your name. You know, history is absolutely filled with leaders who checked all of those boxes. But their true measure, the thing that really defined their legacy, well, that came down to something else entirely.
The answer might not be what you expect. It's not really about the day-to-day choices or the grand speeches they give, or even the immediate success and prosperity they bring to their people. Now, don't get me wrong, all of those things are incredibly important, of course they are, but they aren't the ultimate benchmark. The real test, the thing that separates the good from the truly great, is something much deeper, something with far more lasting impact.
And here it is. This is the heart of it. A leader's greatest test is ensuring the system survives them. Think about that for a second. Their ultimate duty isn't to their own power or even to their own reputation. It's to the long-term health and the future of the institution, the community, or the nation that they're leading. It's all about building something so strong, so robust, that it doesn't need you standing there to keep it going. In fact, it should thrive even more after you're gone. Now that is the real challenge.
This right here, this is the dividing line. This is where we separate the leaders who have a great career from the ones who leave a great legacy. So many people can achieve incredible things during their time in charge. But this real test, this institutional test of what happens after them, is where so many, even the most brilliant leaders, ultimately fail. It's like they build a beautiful, intricate house that only they know the secrets to, and the moment they leave, the whole thing just crumbles.
And the price of failing this test? Oh, it is absolutely massive. Just look at any history book, and you'll see the same tragic pattern again and again. A brilliant king dies, and the empire he spent a lifetime building just shatters into pieces from civil war. A visionary CEO retires from a company, and it completely loses its way because the entire culture was built around their single personality. Why does this happen? It happens because the leadership was all about the person, not about the institution. The plan for what comes next was never the priority. And you know, this idea isn't some modern business school theory. This profound wisdom, which is detailed so well in sources like The Foundation of Islamic Jurisprudence, comes directly from Abu Bakr himself. He didn't just understand this principle, he lived it. He knew on a fundamental level that his leadership wasn't about his own time in charge, it was about protecting the future of the entire community. This one quote perfectly captures the mindset he had as he faced the most critical decision of his life.
So when he's faced with this ultimate test, what does he do? Well, he had to navigate some very common, very tempting traps. You know, the default options that most leaders in his position would have taken without a second thought. And his true genius, his real act of leadership, was in seeing these traps for what they were and deliberately, consciously, rejecting every single one of them. All right, so the first and most obvious path was to choose someone from his own family, right? Maybe his son or a close relative. This is the path of monarchy, of building a dynasty. It's simple, it keeps power concentrated, and it's basically been the default model of succession for thousands of years. But Abu Bakr knew that this would have completely changed the very nature of the community. It would have transformed a system based on faith and principle into one based on bloodline and inheritance. He absolutely rejected it. Okay, so what was the next easy path? It was the world of tribal politics. Now, you have to remember, in that time and place, tribal loyalty was a massive force. It was everything. He easily could have picked a successor to please a powerful tribe, or to forge a strategic alliance, or maybe even to repay a political favor. But any choice like that would have been based on power dynamics, not on what was truly best for the community as a whole. He saw that trap, and he sidestepped it too.
And finally, there's the third trap, one we see all the time today, the trap of populism. He could have just picked the person who was the most popular, the one who would get the loudest cheers from the crowd. It would have been an emotional choice, and probably a very safe choice politically. But he understood a crucial truth. Popularity is not the same thing as capability. He knew that the person best suited for a tough job might not be the one everyone likes the most. and he refused to let public opinion dictate a decision of this magnitude.
So what do we call this incredible approach? What's the term for this way of thinking? Well, the perfect phrase for it is institutional wisdom. It's that rare ability, that foresight, to prioritize the system's long-term health over any and all short-term gains, whether those gains are personal, political, or just about pleasing the crowd. This kind of disciplined, selfless decision-making is it's incredibly rare.
So by rejecting all of those common traps, family, politics, popularity, Abu Bakr cleared the way. He made space for a decision that was based on a single, incredibly powerful, and frankly, revolutionary principle. And this, right here, is the core lesson for all of us today. It's a principle that would secure the future in a way that no other could.
And here is that principle in its purest, most powerful form. Choose the most capable person for the job. Period. Full stop. No other factor was allowed to matter. Not bloodline, not tribal affiliation, not personal friendship, not popularity. The one and only question on the table was this: who has the character, the skills, the integrity, and the strength to lead this community and ensure its stability for the future? That's it.
This comparison chart just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have the common path, the one most people take. It's based on connections, politics, and popularity. It's short-sighted. It's about the now. But on the other side, you have the wise path that Abu Bakr chose. It's based on capability, on pure merit, and on what builds institutional trust. This is the far-sighted approach. This is the path that builds legacies that last for centuries.
And so, the person who met that single, incredibly difficult criterion was Umar ibn al-Khattab. He was not chosen because he was the easiest pick or the most politically convenient one. In fact, some people were surprised. He was chosen because Abu Bakr, through his deep wisdom and his profound understanding of character, saw him as the single most capable person to shoulder that immense, almost unbearable responsibility of leadership. It was a choice of pure, unadulterated merit.
So let's talk about the results. What was the impact of this one momentous decision? Because it wasn't just about picking the next guy in line. The consequences of this incredible act of institutional wisdom literally echoed through history, shaping the very foundation of the entire community for generations and generations to come.
Let's just break down the impact here. First, right at its birth, this decision prevented the community from becoming just another hereditary empire, another kingdom passed from father to son. Second, it established a powerful, enduring precedent that leadership should be based on merit and capability, not on your last name. Third, and this is the big one, it achieved the primary goal. It secured institutional continuity. The transition of power was stable, the system survived the loss of its leader, and the whole community's foundation was actually made stronger, not weaker, by this change.
And that's why it's so important that we see this decision for what it truly was. This was not some clever political move or a strategic calculation. It was a profound, selfless act of institutional preservation. Abu Bakr's focus was not on the man, but on the mission. He saw himself as the guardian of an institution, and his final, most important act as that guardian was to ensure it passed into the most capable hands possible.
And this, of course, brings us right back to today. This lesson from history is just as urgent now as it was then. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In our own lives, in our businesses, our communities, our nations, what could we build? What could we achieve if our leaders consistently, courageously chose capability over connection? It's a powerful idea to reflect on. If you found this explainer valuable, please remember to like, subscribe, and
Start with a big question. How do you replace someone who seems irreplaceable? You know, it's a challenge that every great organization, every nation, every movement eventually has to face. When that foundational leader is gone, how do you make sure that everything they built not only survives, but actually thrives? That's the huge challenge we're diving into today.
Okay, so here's where our case study begins. It's centered on Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first caliph of Islam. As he was facing his own mortality, his final, and maybe his most important test wasn't on a battlefield. It was a decision, a single question: who should come next to lead the community? And right away, this is the first crucial point. Abu Bakr wasn't trying to find a clone of himself, a carbon copy. Not at all. His goal was so much bigger than that. It was about protecting the principles, the stability, and the entire future of the community. It was a profoundly selfless act, totally focused on the institution, not on his own personal legacy. So, how did he tackle this monumental task? Well, this brings us to our first core principle. You've got to choose a successor based on pure merit, not on what's politically easy or who you're friends with. And the person he had in mind? That was Umar ibn al-Khattab.
And when we talk about his merits, we're not talking about vague buzzwords. No, Abu Bakr identified specific, tangible qualities. Things like unmatched justice, serious administrative skill, and a moral compass that was just unshakable. Now sure, some people were a little wary of Umar's strict personality, but nobody could deny his absolute integrity. And that underlying trust, that was the real deciding factor.
And this quote, wow, this just brilliantly shows how deep Abu Bakr's insight was. It's a really sophisticated understanding of psychology, right? He knew that the immense weight of leadership actually changes a person. He was predicting that Omar's famous intensity would be tempered, that it would turn into a balanced strength once he was carrying the full responsibility of the office.
Okay, so let's move on because this builds to the second principle, which you could argue is even more important for any kind of long-term success. It's this idea of prioritizing the system, the institution, over any one single personality.
So what is institutional continuity? Well, it just means the mission keeps going, smoothly. Abu Bakr's goal was to make sure that justice wouldn't stop, that the government would stay stable, and that the public's trust would be maintained, no matter who was in charge. The system itself had to be stronger than any one individual.
You know, he didn't just name his successor and then cross his fingers. No way. He followed a very deliberate process. He put the decision in writing to make it official. He brought in his most trusted advisors to get their wisdom, and then he worked to build a broad consensus among the people. Every single step was designed to prevent chaos, to prevent a power vacuum, and to strengthen the rule of law.
And the contrast here is just so clear, isn't it? A leadership style that's all about one personality is incredibly fragile. When that person is gone, the whole thing can just crumble. But system-first leadership, the path Abu Bakr chose, that's how you build something that is resilient, something designed to last for generations to come. And this brings us right to our third and final principle, the power of consultation. In the Islamic tradition, this is known as shura. Because look, a decision, even the right decision, is weak if it's made all alone in a vacuum. Real, legitimate authority is built by including others.
And this wasn't just a formality, not just for show. Abu Bakr engaged in real, genuine consultation. He actually listened to the worries people had about Omar's strictness. He fairly weighed their objections, and he went directly to the community to address their fears. You see, this whole process didn't just validate his decision. It made it stronger by making the entire community a part of it. So, what you end up with is this powerful formula. This is the absolute masterstroke of his leadership style. He was decisive, right? He didn't run from the tough call. But, and this is key, he combined that decisiveness with deep and respectful consultation. He didn't just force his will on people, but he also didn't drag his feet forever. And the result? Legitimate authority. So, what's the big takeaway for us? I mean, these events happened over 1,400 years ago, but they give us this incredible blueprint for what principled leadership and succession planning should look like, even in our modern world. It really boils down to these three pillars. Number one, choose people based on their character and what they can do, not based on politics. Number two, focus on building systems and institutions that will outlast you. And number three, earn your authority by consulting and listening, not just by giving orders.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. When we look at leaders today, in our companies, in our communities, in our countries, do we see people who are focused on building enduring, principled systems? Or are they just focused on holding on to their own personal power? The answer to that question, well, it tells us everything we need to know about the kind of future they're building.
One that pretty much every leader faces, whether you're running a startup or a country. What is the single greatest test of a leader? Is it just handling a crisis, or is it something much deeper?
So the story we're looking at today centers on this one critical moment. It's when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first caliph, had to choose who would come after him. And this wasn't just about picking a name. No, this was a choice that was going to shape the entire future of the state. He basically found himself at a crossroads that I think we can all recognize. On one side, you had the popular path, the easy choice, the one that would make everyone happy in the short term. And on the other, you had the path he truly believed was the right one for the community's future. Now, we know that some people were actually scared of his choice, Umar, because he was known for being so firm. So yeah, the popular path would have been a whole lot simpler. And right there, that's the core of the struggle, isn't it?
It's that constant battle between short-term comfort, giving people what they think they want right now, versus the much tougher job of building something that lasts, something built on long-term justice. And Abu Bakr, he just refused to give in to that pressure.
So what was really at stake here? Well, by choosing courage over comfort, he basically reinforced the entire foundation of the state. This wasn't just about one person. It was about protecting the integrity of the law, keeping discipline, making sure there was public order, and, maybe most importantly, offering real moral clarity. He propped up the whole system.
You know what this all boils down to is a simple but incredibly powerful truth. It's what separates the good managers from the truly great leaders, having the guts to make the hard call for the greater good, even when it's not the easy thing to do.
Okay, so let's talk about the ripple effects of this one courageous choice, because this wasn't a decision just for that moment in time. It was really an act to protecting the future of the entire institution.
And the results? They were immediate, and they were a total game changer. By picking a strong successor, he stopped potential power struggles before they could even start. He made sure the government's moral compass stayed pointed in the right direction. This one choice didn't just keep things stable, it literally set the stage for the next golden era.
And this really gets to the why behind his actions. His leadership was never about ego. It wasn't about building a legacy for himself. His entire focus was on protecting and serving the community, the Ummah, and the institution he was responsible for.
So, you might be thinking, how does a story from centuries ago apply to us today? Well, the connection is actually incredibly direct, especially when you think about the critical institutions of our time, like the huge AI companies that are literally building our future. The founders and leaders there have immense power over who comes next and what the long-term ethics are going to be.
These lessons are just universal. Succession has to be planned out. You can't just wing it based on who's popular. The goal has to be building institutions that are bigger than any one charismatic founder, especially in a field as important as AI. That means you've got to protect the system from being all about one person and have the courage to pick strong leaders to carry the mission forward.
And make no mistake, the stakes could not be higher. It doesn't matter if it's a country or a tech giant. One bad succession, one failure in that transition of leadership, it can undo decades of work in the blink of an eye. It can just shatter trust, kill innovation, and destroy all stability. Which brings us to our final, and maybe the most important point. What is a leader's true legacy? What's the real measure of their success in the long run?
Abu Bakr as-Siddiq seems to have understood this deep fundamental truth. Any one leader's time is temporary. It's just a fleeting moment. But the institution you serve, that's meant to last. True leadership is really stewardship. It's about taking care of something that is so much bigger than you are.
So when you look back, his greatest legacy wasn't just what he did during his time in charge. It was his incredible foresight, his selflessness to make sure that the whole thing would not only survive, but actually thrive long after he was gone. He set up his successor, and in doing so, he gave the world one of its greatest eras of justice. Now that is leadership at its absolute best.
So we'll end with a question, a challenge really, for all of us, whether you lead a team, a company, or even just your family. It's not just about what you accomplish today. It's about how you prepare for a future you won't even be in. How do you make sure that what you've built will be in good hands long after you're gone?